people who are willing and able to, and available for work are unable to find a job. And I have the unemployment rate equation there. But there are discrepancies with these figures as there could be definitional problems, such as people who aren't necessarily included in unemployment, like people with disabilities or like long term illnesses, discouraged workers. And there can also be differences in unemployment rates in regards to religion, gender, ethnicities, age, and kind of like social political issues within systems. So seasonal unemployment occurs when people are unemployed at particular times of the year when demand for labor is lower than usual. In tourist areas, seasonal unemployment may be a big issue as work is only available for certain months within a year.
Closely related, why does seasonal unemployment occur? It occurs because some companies may only produce and distribute goods and services at certain times of the year. Some examples of this is agriculture or construction jobs. So some potentially responsible factors for seasonal unemployment is the lack of small-scale and cottage industries in rural areas. A cottage industry is basically manufacturing activities that are operated at home. For example, maybe handicrafts you can make with your siblings and sell them online. That's considered a cottage industry. Lack of multiple cropping. Multiple cropping is basically when you grow two or more different types of crops on the same piece of land. So, for example, you can grow garlic in the spring, corn in the summer, and so on and so forth. And lastly, we have a lack of commercialization of agriculture. Yeah.
Sorry. Okay. So then some problems with seasonal unemployment might be unemployment figures, as official government statistics are often have to be seasonally adjusted, because like obviously there's higher unemployment rates during certain seasons, which could lead to like a seasonal fluctuations with figures. Then low income management. Workers may be on low income throughout the year and have to manage their consumption, which they then compensate with seasonal unemployment by saving during tourist seasons, for instance. And temporary migration. Locals may look for stable jobs elsewhere, and they may be encouragement for temporary migration depending on the flexibility of labor. So students returning home for summer jobs, and then voluntary employment. Seasonal unemployment is considered voluntary as many workers choose their jobs for freedom and benefits, and when workers they choose not to work at a current equilibrium wage rate.
Looking good.
Here are some possible solutions to seasonal employment that I could think of. One is to try to diversify the economy to increase the portion of non-seasonal jobs. For example, an economy is too reliant on like tourism. Maybe it can invest in different industries. This can reduce the seasonal employment, but it can take a long time and might even be impossible if the region doesn't have the right natural resources or geographical suitability for different industries. The second way is to create jobs during off seasons in order to improve infrastructure within the country so that people can be employed during off seasons. And this is a more efficient use of resources. But this uses government budget, which obviously creates opportunity costs.
Well done.
Kendrick? Like Kendrick was supposed to present this part. I didn't make this, but if you just look at the graph, you can see that the tourists, the graph fluctuates depending on like season. So you can see that like tourism, like the money gained from tourism and people's jobs decrease during these off seasons.
Good work.
That's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Fantastic, team. Well done. All right. And we can think about the makeup of the economies. You're going to have some economies where there's perhaps a lot of seasonal work going on, and other economies where there's very little. So the actual structure of the economy is quite a significant part to that. Okay, cyclical team. So if we can present to the screen.
Okay, I'll present, I guess. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
So yeah, cyclical unemployment. So what is cyclical unemployment? Well, it's a type of unemployment that occurs like on like the business cycle. So if you think of the shape of the business cycle, it's obviously like cyclical. So it obviously happens when there's a recessionary gap and there's a downturn from the low aggregate demand. It's also known as demand deficient unemployment because it was caused by a lack of demand. So because of the reduction in demand, there's obviously layoffs for workers, and firms would obviously like to keep profits high, so they would want to get rid of some of their labor. So GDP will fall due to a fall in AD, and unemployment will increase because firms don't want labor, more labor. Yeah. Okay.
Here are the diagrams showing cyclical unemployment. Okay. So basically, as shown in the diagrams, initially the economy is producing at potential output level, which is YP, with zero cyclical unemployment. And as the aggregate demand curve shifts from AD1 to AD2, a recessionary gap is created as the real output decreases to Y recessionary point, which creates cyclical unemployment. Yeah, okay. The diagram at the right indicates the for employment in relation to the ADS model. And when the economy is producing at potential GDP, or when there is an inflationary gap, there is zero cyclical unemployment. And when there's a recessionary gap, when the unemployment natural rate, there's a cyclical unemployment due to the lack of aggregate demand.
So how would you calculate cyclical unemployment rate? So it's defined as the difference between the natural rate of unemployment and the current rate of unemployment, and there's like 3 different ways you can use to measure the rate. So you can use the business cycle, and you find a difference between the peak and the trough. So like the tippity top and the bottom, you could get the aggregate employment rate and subtract the other 3 unemployment rates from it. Or you can compare like recent college grads unemployment rate with aggregate unemployment rates. If the rates are like similar, then there should be cyclical unemployment, because like college grads have like a lot of new skills, and they're not like geographically like bounded, so there's little chance of structural unemployment.
So how can the government control or reduce cyclical unemployment? It is by introducing economic policies which increase demand and reduce recessionary gap. This will include fiscal policies and monetary policies. Fiscal policies involve taxes, so reducing taxes to stimulate consumer demand, increasing government spending, decreasing personal income taxes, decreasing business taxes on their profits, or a combination of increasing spending and decreasing taxes. And for monetary policies, these will be by the banks, which reduce interest rates to encourage consumers or businesses to borrow and to have more investment and to like spend more, and so increase demand. And there are other policies which introduce protectionist measures to protect domestic businesses from international competition. There are some critiques of these solutions, which is time lags for both monetary and fiscal policy, where it takes time for there to be an effect. And so there might not be like much accuracy, I guess. and there's like ineffectiveness in both because some banks might be unwilling to increase lending in a severe recession. So it depends on where the economy is on like the business cycle. And there's also inability to deal with stagflation, where monetary policy is a demand policy. So they might be unable to deal effectively with supply side, which is like causing instability.
So one example of cyclical unemployment is the loss in construction job during the 2008 financial crisis. As the house crisis unfolded, home builders stopped constructing new homes. As many as 2 million construction workers lost their jobs.
Well done. That was awesome. Fantastic, team. All right. Okay. So we should therefore have the structural team, I believe, next up.
Okay, I'll be presenting my screen for that. Can you guys all see?
Yes.
All right. Okay, so yeah, structural employment.
Definition of structural unemployment. First, structural unemployment is a form of unemployment that lasts for a long time and is compounded by external factors. Structural unemployment happens when people lack the necessary career skills or live too far away from job opportunities and are unable to reallocate. There are usually available jobs, but there is a serious mismatch between firms' need and what workers can offer.
Okay, so just to recap, it's a type of involuntary unemployment, and it's due to the mismatch between the skills the workers in the economy can offer and the skills that employers want and need. And because of this, it can normally last for decades, and it usually requires a big change in the economy to kind of rectify and fix this unemployment. And this kind of change, this kind of unemployment can be caused by a shift in the economy. Specifically, in general, it's caused by industrial reorganization, such as technological changes, and not due to changes in demand or supply, because those are not exactly what would be categorized as industrial reorganization. And the consequences of structural unemployment leads to things such as problems with housing, with renting and buying, if workers have to move from an area with high employment to an area with labor shortages. And it may also lead to issues with reskilling, as there may be increase in demand for other types of jobs. So it's more difficult with older workers to join or get employed. This slide is done by Nisa, but her mic's kind of broken, so I'm just taking over. And so yeah, the major contributions of structural unemployment are free trade and globalization, apart from technological changes. And the main group of people that's affected by this are older people, as I said before, because they are less likely to go back to school. They are not able to move that much if they have bought their own house, so less mobility in terms of geographical. They are not willing to take a lower paying job, and they are most likely to get replaced by younger workers, which are more familiar with technology and has a general higher mobility.
So one of the examples of structural unemployment happened in 2009 in Detroit, when the unemployment levels rose to 29% compared to the national rate of 9.8%. This happened when the US car manufacturing firm named General Motors had to close down due to strong international competition. Labor of General Motors became unemployed and were not qualified to get the jobs in areas of labor vacancies, such as doctors, IT, teachers, and electricians. Workers were then unable to find new jobs, hence the unemployment rate increased. Next slide, please.
Sorry.
The second example, is coal mining workers have declined sharply in the United Kingdom, as they have in many other Western economies over the last century. There are now less than 5,000 miners, down from over 1 million in the 1920s. Coal miners are a group of workers who are partially vulnerable to long-term unemployment. They may lack formal qualifications, as many workers have done close ties to their mining town. When mines close, it can be difficult to find new jobs. Next slide, please.
It's on the next, or is it?
These are the solutions to structural unemployment, providing education or training to help those who are unemployed. Decrease unemployment benefits to create an incentive for those who are unemployed to find a job immediately. Improving the labor market flexibility, such as part-time job. And last is subsidize or create incentives to make it easier for workers to relocate, like kinds of employer subsidies and housing subsidies.
Yeah, that's it for our presentation.
Fantastic. Well done, team. Structural unemployment is really quite insidious, that idea of a skills mismatch. And it's something that you will be very aware of yourself, perhaps quite keenly so. Those of you who are technologically minded will be well aware of just how fast technology can change. And when you consider people like my father, yes, he's an old man now, but when he was young, people didn't have television sets. So within his lifetime, it's gone from no TVs all the way through to all of the technologies that we have now. And that's pretty incredible with regards to the pace of change, just within one person's lifetime. And when you think about your lifetime, what you have seen, right? Things like the iPhone, which has actually only been around for 13 years now. That's how long the iPhone has actually been around. So the technology will change, and there's a lot of demand and will be for those new sectors and new jobs, ones we haven't even considered yet. So workers' flexibility and ability to learn new skills is going to be something that will be in huge demand going forward. Absolutely. Well done, team. We've got, who do we have next? Structural, frictional. Can the frictional team jump on board, please?
All present. Can you hear me though?
Yes, indeed.
All right, sounds good. So it works?
Absolutely.
So frictional employment by Sharaf, Max, Serhia, who's not here, Youngsin, and Joldi. So what is frictional unemployment? Frictional unemployment is a type of unemployment which arises when workers are searching for new jobs or are transitioning from their current job to a new job. Frictional unemployment is not related with the economic activities that take place in the economy. This means that, for example, even if there is an increase in the levels of recession, there won't be any effect on the levels of frictional unemployment. An example would be that when very common example is the graduating students from university are the most common example. This is because after entering the workforce, they're unable to find a good job or any job straight away. They need to find a job which matches their skill levels, meaning that they remain unemployed until they find work. The period of them searching for the job is frictional unemployment.
These are the causes. Just as Sharaf mentioned, many are first-time job seekers like new entrants and college graduates. And it can be also caused by a mismatch between like the workers and available jobs. So they can't. So the workers might not be able to find the job that fits them. Yeah, that's like information mismatch. And it can also be caused by workers' dissatisfaction with the work conditions. So they want to change jobs. And it can be also caused by personal reasons. Many may change job because marriage and family reasons, or they might move to a different location, so they need to find a new job. And the sixth one is not really a cause, but kind of like a factor, because if we have more, if people have more confidence in the economy, so they will be more comfortable with quitting their jobs without having a backup. Yeah, that's all.
Many economists view reasonable levels of frictional unemployment as a positive event for the economy because it provides businesses within the economy with a larger selection of human capital. Due to frictional unemployment, companies may gain access to more qualified employees. But this phenomenon can also have negative side effects. If job seekers take a long time to find a job, there will be an increasing of frustration among job seekers, and that can lead to a decrease in productivity. Moreover, longer frictional unemployment may result in a production decline in the economy. It can also cause households with limited savings to fall behind bill payments and end up in more debts. Even short-term unemployment can also be stressful and may reduce the confidence of those without work.
Okay, so the solutions of frictional employment. So essentially, the first thing would be so what we have is monetary policy. So if we cut interest rates to boost aggregate demand, this encourages firms and consumers to spend, which will also make exports more competitive. This increases the number of jobs for skilled labor. Therefore, workers looking for a job can find one sooner rather than later. Then for supply side, we have for supply side unemployment, we have education and training. So for example, if we retrain employees, it can enable them to find jobs quicker. So for example, the aim of this is to give usually long-term unemployed new skills, which will therefore enable them to find jobs in developing industries. So for example, retraining unemployed steel workers to have basic IT skills. Then there's also improved geographical mobility. So let's say if there is a lack of jobs for specific skill set in a specific region, then if you encourage firms to set up in these depressed areas, it may increase the chance of someone finding a job in those areas, basically. Yeah, and then next slide. Sorry. So to evaluate monetary policy, which is the first solution, lower interest rates may not necessarily help to boost spending if banks are reluctant to lend. Demand side policies can contribute to reducing demand deficit unemployment. They may take a longer time to stimulate demand and reduce unemployment. So it isn't like an immediate solution. Yeah.
Well done, team. That's fantastic. What a great effort you all did. All right. Now, can I have you in the little chat bit next to me, or next to you? Sorry, my words are getting a bit word salady today. I had my first injection of the vaccine yesterday, so I'm a little bit out of it today, but I'm all right. In the chat section of the Meet, here's what I'd like from you. You've now seen the four main types, the four main causes of unemployment, all right? Which do you think is worse? So which of those, if you were to weigh them up as an economist, as a politician, which one would you then say we need to focus on this type of unemployment more than these other types of unemployment? That's the question. Which one is worse? Which one should the politicians be focusing on more than other types? What do you think? Thank you.
Welcome.
So just in the chat function, if you have a think about which of those two types you feel would be the worst type of unemployment that the economy would face, therefore the one the government should target possibly more than the other types. Good work coming out here. Good work. Well done, team. All right, and that's the sort of decision that politicians have to make. They have to look at, yes, they have to look at the actual economy in and of itself. They have to see where the unemployment is. They have to work out that not all policies are going to suit each type or cause, if you like, of unemployment. Please do notice I'm using type and cause basically as the same word, because you're going to see it in some books as being types of unemployment and in other books as being causes of unemployment. So if we imagine those two as being the same word. And I would argue structural myself as well, because of the fact that it's impacting on the skill base of the economy. Then to me, that would seem to be something that would be quite a challenge and quite difficult for a lot of economies to manage. If you can imagine some of those high-tech industries, if you can consider the impact of long-term unemployment. In some cases, you're thinking generational unemployment, where people have been unemployed their entire lives and their families are unemployed as well. Okay, so I would possibly err towards the side of targeting structural unemployment. However, it isn't actually the easiest one to target. Which type of unemployment do you think would be the easiest for the government to target? Right, so just in the chat function, which type of unemployment do you feel would be the easiest for the government to target, to try and fix? Good, well done, team. That's a great job. Yeah, frictional is probably the one that should, in theory, be the simplest to fix, all right? Quick fixes, potentially. However, when you think about demand deficient unemployment, when you look at that sort of cyclical level of unemployment, and one of your solutions has to do with demand management, aggregate demand, well, that's your fiscal policy. So it's putting the foot on the accelerator with regards to that. So the government can do that quite easily, right? Whereas with some frictional unemployment, if it's thinking about, you know, workers who are temporarily in between jobs, or how do you shorten that time? Maybe it's information, getting the right information out there, designing an app, so don't touch. There you go. Okay. Designing an app so that people can match their skills with the jobs that are out there. Websites where you can upload CVs, information. Maybe that's part of what is needed with regards to frictional unemployment. So again, we come back to that idea that dependent on what type or cause of unemployment your economy is going to be seeing, might then dictate the type of government policy that's needed in order to actually help or solve that particular type. Now, obviously, at the moment, we've got a global pandemic. We've got mass levels of cyclical, in many cases, unemployment, and it is impacting on different countries in different ways. Governments are going to struggle, right, unless they're unleashing all of the tools at their disposal to try and fix these particular problems. So it may be that, you know, information is the easiest thing for them to put out there, or it may be we just need to spend a whole lot of money, whole lot of money from the fiscal budget in order to try and solve these particular problems. All right, team. Now, very quickly, there is a Nearpod that we can jump into. So I'm going to flip the screen around. Well done, though. All right. F358U, F358U. Hopefully it's in the classroom. I have a memory of posting it to the classroom, so hopefully it's there. If we could jump there, there's just a couple more slides I would like to just have a quick look at in this particular section. And then I need to move on to the next bit. All right. Now, thinking full employment, okay. The idea with full employment is that potentially everybody who is willing and able to work has jobs. But remember those different types of unemployment. So one of the things that we need to also consider is the idea that potentially different types or different causes of unemployment are going to be more heavily weighted within the idea of full employment. So those frictional and seasonal unemployed people are going to be potentially more evident in the idea of full employment than you might see cyclical or even structural. The idea of underemployment we covered, unemployment rates, how it was calculated, weaknesses in the actual unemployment figures, so the definitions and counting issues. And again, that goes the same when you are looking at those types. How do you categorize those different types? Where do you find that data? How are you accounting for that data? All right. How do you say that's a skills mismatch, right, for those people? Where do you get that sort of information from? All right. International Labour Organization, economic costs, we discussed. All right. Demand side policies, supply side policies, and market-based approaches where we are removing labour imperfections, things like the minimum wage, which is obviously quite pertinent in the discussion of late, particularly in America, and maybe decreasing the natural rate. So if you're attempting to decrease the natural rate of unemployment, then one of the things that you're thinking about again is those types of unemployment and trying then to target specific types of unemployment so that you're able to decrease the natural rate. All right. All right, structural reforms, that was that one. All right, now criticisms here of supply side policies. The idea of voluntary unemployment, okay? If a skilled piano player, are they voluntarily unemployed if they refuse to become a rubbish collector just because that's the only job that's available? And these are the ideas that we need to consider when we are evaluating some of these policies. Does voluntary unemployment actually, as a term, does it really encounter people, does it really encompass people whose skill level is potentially well above the skill levels that are required for the market? Social costs of having lower minimum wages and unemployment benefits inequality, right? So when we reduce the minimum wages, then we're going to see more of this inequality occurring. Limited impact of marginal tax rates. The idea that we have a lower marginal tax rate may actually not have as much effect as we think on labour supply. And that idea of a mismatch in the labour market, the idea that potentially job adverts aren't doing what we want them to do, okay, and that may actually decrease during recessions. And that was something that was pointed out in America in particular, is that despite the fact that there is now a lot of jobs available, there aren't a lot of people wanting to take the jobs or applying for the jobs. And so it's other things. There are other things at play other than just the pure economic idea. You know, we have the theory, this is what the theory says. However, in reality, there are other things at play. Right, okay, so we'll jump out of that now. Stop sharing. Okay, team. Now, where this is leading, as you are well and truly aware, is that this is part of one of the main roles of the government, one of their objectives, okay? And part of what you are attempting to do is to be able to develop these skills enough so that, yes, you're going to have conversations in an exam where you are thinking about government policies and evaluating them, but also we are thinking about this little wee thing, which I will show you here, and it is your IAC2, so your commentary number 2, which is obviously macroeconomics. Now, a couple of you have put some information in there, not that many at this point, and that's okay, and I'm sure more will arrive, but it is something we need to chip away at. Now, maybe unemployment isn't that what you are thinking that you might like to target. Maybe you're thinking inflation might be your target. Maybe you're thinking along other lines other than simply unemployment. The next thing that I have asked you to do is to consider your internal assessment homepage, the site. I've posted into the classroom that I would like, one of the tasks I would like you to do is to go back through the site, to have a look at the rules and regulations, to have a think, to start looking for articles, start thinking about the key concept that you're going to use, all right? And yeah, basically to start looking at what you need to do and start planning out, okay? Maybe finding the article, maybe starting to think about it and put it into the planning document, but making sure you've got a really good understanding now of what this all looks like, the marks, where the marks go, the criteria, all of the different criteria, and you're looking at the criteria at the top end of the mark bands, all right, so that you can see what it is that I'm wanting you to get to. Now, I've got obviously the exemplars for the new syllabus that you've got access to as well. But if you have a look at the exemplars for the old syllabus, now that's the old syllabus, right? So that's, you don't need to worry too much. It doesn't include, obviously, your key concepts. However, there are a number more, more macro C2s in here in the old syllabus with regards to exemplars, obviously, than there are in the new syllabus. So this one's about inflation, all right? Here's an HL. Okay, with regards to economic growth. All right, there is interest rates, the macro one. All right, now a lot of these, there's a micro one, tariff, that's international trade, and here the New Zealand Reserve Bank and the OCR, that is another, well, it's monetary policy, it's another macro one. All right, and then obviously we've also got the resources of videos at the end. Okay. And so there's a couple in there that you've possibly already watched, but maybe time to review them and have a think about what might be there, particularly these ones by Econ plus Dahl about writing paragraphs and getting your evaluation up to the stage that you kind of need it to be. And as usual, the learner guide is there. Right. Okay. I haven't put your new planning guide in. I need to put your new planning guide in. Right, and a couple of other tips as well. All in there. All right, so that's there. So what I've asked you to do, is to go back through your IA. All right, have a look at the micro one, see what you did, familiarize yourself with the website, with the standard, the criteria, those things. Have a look back through those exemplars, see that you know the level that I'm wanting you to aim towards, and then start thinking about possible articles. Now, it doesn't have to be unemployment. It could be inflation, right? Unemployment and inflation and economic growth are going to be your three major ones that you can possibly think about. But also what key concept you're going to be using. And then as the document that you've got for planning says, where does it say, what possible model might you use? And then evaluative thoughts that you might include. Now, quite clearly, you're going to be having as a model ADAS. I would be incredibly surprised if any of you came away with a C2 that did not have ADAS as its model. All right. However, I have seen learners try. All right. Not particularly successfully. All right. So please do keep all of that in mind. That's what I'm wanting you to have a think about. Obviously, review the information that you got from your peers about unemployment and different types. Add some notes to your notes with regards to the types and causes, but also then have a go through the IA website and start thinking about what you might plan. Now, you haven't got all the information about inflation yet. You haven't got all the information about income inequality yet. You haven't got all the information yet about economic growth. That doesn't matter. All you're looking for, remember, is the case study. You're looking for the news article about that, right? So it might be a fiscal policy, okay? Taxation, spending, right? It might be monetary policy, increasing the interest rates, decreasing interest rates, yeah? Something along those sorts of lines is what you're going to be needing to focus on. And there will be a lot of articles, particularly at the moment, because of the situation the world is in. There are lots and lots of them. And we're going to run into that same problem of what is a news article and what is a blog. So you will have to make sure that you're getting the right thing there. But otherwise, that's what I'm wanting you to focus on. I've also posted an advert about the next round of the World Economics Cup. So those of you who participated in the World Economics Cup might be surprised to know that the next year's round is already here. And I've had an email from the organizer wanting to know if we are wanting to submit a team. So if that sounds like you want to have another go at the World Economics Cup, or you weren't in it last time and now you'd want to have a go at it, please email me today, right? Because they're starting now to get a bit, they want the information from us to see if we have any students who are interested, right? Being locked down and everything has kind of put a bit of a hurdle to that particular information delivery. Right, now, are you understanding what it is I'm wanting you to do for the next little bit? Does that make sense?
Yep.
Fantastic. All right. Okay, team. Now, I'm obviously available over email, but otherwise, as we'd say in the land of my birth, hey konera, which means have a fantastic day, and we will see you next time. Yes, you could.
Thank you, Mr. David.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. See you.
Thank you, Mr.
See you.